Hello, everyone. This is Seth, one of the co-hosts of Engage Podcast, to bring you today another great episode of Engage Podcast. But before I can get into that, I have to give you my world-famous announcements. If you are new to the podcast, I just want to say welcome, and I want you right now to hit that subscribe button, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, wherever. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way, every Thursday, when we come out with a new episode of Engage Podcast, it's going to be there on your phone waiting for you to listen. You don't have to look for us. You don't have to search for us. Boom, it's going to be right there on your phone waiting for you. Also, if you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead and go over to our YouTube page. The link for that's down in the show notes. There you can find all kinds of cool content. We have book reviews. We have leadership videos. We have music review videos. So many great things. Every Sunday morning at 11 a.m., we do a live stream service. So if you're someone who, kind of want to get back into the swing of things, going back to church and all that, but you're not exactly sure about actually physically going, boom, guess what? We have you covered. You can watch a live stream service every Sunday at 11 a.m. It's awesome. So go ahead and go to our YouTube page. Also, if you are a visual person like myself and you would get a lot more out of the podcast by seeing it happen in real time, the YouTube page is where you can have that need met. On there, you can actually watch today's podcast happening in real time. You get to see the guest. You get to interact with us. You get to feel like you're sitting at the table with us. It's awesome. It's a cool little thing that we've added this year. So go ahead and check that out on our YouTube page. All right, so our guest today is a great person, and I'm not just saying that because I'm partial to her, because I'm married to her, but she is just such a brilliant and awesome individual, and I'm so glad that she was on the podcast today. Her name is Taylor Walters. Now, if you know by the name, she is my wife, but she's not just on the podcast today to talk about what it's like being married to Seth Walters. She's here to talk about something that she's very, very, very much passionate about, and that is sleep. We all struggle with sleep. All of us do, and especially if you're a parent, when you have little ones, sleep is kind of something you are told that you have to sacrifice. However, when me and my wife had our second child, we just started asking ourselves, do we really have to go without sleep? Do we really have to have this be a part of our, of our adult living? Is in order to have kids, you have to sacrifice sleep. So my wife looked up how to kind of get over that hurdle. How do you have good quality sleep when having young kids? And she actually discovered this company called Sleep Sense that helps to train young adults, young children, how to sleep throughout the night. She was curious about it, and she ended up doing the whole entire thing, and obviously I helped her with it. And the results were so incredible. Our son Gabe was sleeping throughout the night. We're talking like 12 hours. And he was like 6 or 7 months old. And it was so unbelievably effective that my wife decided that she wanted to look further into this program to see if maybe she herself could help other people get better sleep. And she ended up becoming a sleep expert, and it took a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of talent for her to invest and get this. But she now currently not only sleep trains infants, but she also sleep trains adults as well. I'm just going to throw this out there. This is one of the greatest things that I've ever discovered, and I'm so blessed that my wife is not only passionate about this, but she's good at it too. So today she's going to talk all about sleep, how to, how the science behind sleep, the importance behind sleep, and just some basic tidbits on how you can get better sleep. She's fantastic, such, just full of knowledge. You guys are going to love her. So give it up for our friend and my wife, Taylor Walters.
Engaged podcast. We are so excited for this next podcast. We have, of course, Seth Walters sitting over here.
What's up?
How's Seth today?
Good.
All right, and we have the great privilege of having his other half here, Taylor. First time in the Engaged studios. How do you feel?
Different. It's different to sit across the table from my husband while he interviews me.
Yeah, right? Because you're used to interviewing him.
Yeah, pretty much.
Interrogation all day and all night.
Yeah, he says I could be a lawyer.
A attorney. I mean, just we were listening to a podcast, and they were playing the audio of the attorney questioning someone, and the whole time the lady's talking, I'm like, wow, my wife talks just like this whenever she's asking me just any question. It could be if I'm not in trouble. So I think you missed your calling.
Even if you're not in trouble, but you feel like you're in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
That means you're really good at what you do.
Yeah.
She'd be like, what kind of bread did you buy at the store? And I'm like, Wonder Bread? Wonder Bread. So you bought Wonder Bread at the store. Right. Okay. And I'm like, what was going on? So,
well, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Let me say this to the audience. If I sound a little bit different and look a little bit glassy-eyed, I just developed onset 41-year-old allergies. This is what I've been told. So my voice is a little bit funny, my eyes are a little bit glassy, and a little bit strange to develop allergies. Now I can understand how people, when they talk about allergies and all the stuff they go through, how they feel, how uncomfortable. Now I can associate with that. Not that I'm happy about it, but I guess it's my life now. So, well, we have you here, Taylor. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so the main thing that I'm known for is that my parents own Dunkin' in Newcastle, and most of my life has been consumed with Dunkin' from childhood on. And when I graduated high school, I just entered the family business like my sisters did. I worked myself from crew all the way up to general manager, and at that point, that's when me and my sisters decided we really wanted to take this further. So we began developing stores and building, and now we are working on store number 10, and I'm the director of HR for our company. So for I know a little bit about this, but for those listening, your dad started this whole empire, right? I'm going to refer to it as the Dunkin' Empire, but he started from scratch, correct? Yeah. So in 1980, my mom and dad purchased into the franchise. And at the time, they would tell you that they wouldn't wish it on their worst enemy. It was really hard work. They were pretty much the only employees, besides a few others, and they worked really hard for it. And as time grew on, more so when we hit the turn of the century, Dunkin' really became a big thing, and everybody really wanted into the game. And that's when the growth really began, and everybody. It wasn't. My sister jokes because for her it was an embarrassment that her family owned Dunkin', but for me, everybody loved that. They thought that was awesome.
So back in the day, Dunkin' was. I remember. Is this the commercial with the guy that had the little mustache, and he was working all night? Time to make the donuts. Yeah. Time to make the donuts. If you remember
Fred
that,
the baker.
If you remember that commercial, leave a comment, because it has a warm place in my heart. I remember that.
Yeah.
And that's how the people in that generation remember Dunkin'.
Yeah.
And that's how your parents started. It was that era.
Yeah, they actually got to meet Fred the baker.
Oh, really?
We actually have an autograph in our office.
Oh, he's Fred the baker.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
about that.
Yeah, Fred the baker. And is that his real name, or was that an acting name?
That I don't know.
Okay. Fred the baker. That's cool. Next time I want to see that. Take a picture of it and send it to me. So your family started that, and I'm sure it was extremely difficult, but now it's grew to be very successful.
Yeah.
How has your parents influenced you in your life?
My parents are both obviously go-getters. I mean, they started this from scratch and they worked very hard for it, and they were always that way. Growing up, I had a lot of people say that me and my sisters were born with silver spoons in our mouth, and we were not. My parents very much instilled in us that you work for what you want, and nothing is given to you. You're not entitled to anything, which is a lot different than I think the culture that we have now. And it's hard to find workers like that.
Yeah.
So I value my parents for raising us that way.
I'll tell you what, and there is a theme in so many of these podcasts with people that have been successful, and that is the influence of hardworking parents.
Yeah.
It sticks out in every episode. Someone will refer to their mom or their dad as having a very strong work ethic.
That's
and how that shaped them.
Yeah, I mean, we always make fun of my dad because if he doesn't have a project, he'd die. Like, he has to be doing something.
That's how he's going to live forever. He's going to ensure there's no death. He just keep continuing.
The next project. But he really doesn't ever have free time. Like, he's never just lounging, doing nothing. He's always busy.
Okay. So I have a list of questions here, and one of them, and it's actually in capital letters. And it says, tell us a little bit about your awesome husband. So this is, for our viewers, this is going to be a cool little insight, because now we have someone that lives with Seth. And you can go ahead and share some greatest hits with us.
I have the person I live with and the person that I work with right next to each other. I'm kind of terrified.
Seth and I are very different people. We're raised differently. We have different traits, different personalities, different likes, dislikes. We're not really alike at all. But we met, 11 years ago now.
Yeah.
And my family, my dad was actually the president of our church, and we were looking for a new pastor. And they went and they interviewed Seth's dad, and loved him, wanted him. And what was funny about it is Seth lived in a place where he didn't really want to leave. He had friends there. He loved the city that he lived in. And
this was, not to interrupt, this is St. Louis?
Yeah.
And the only reason I ask is because you've shared a lot about St. Louis in the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And the way his dad got him to come visit was by telling him there was this really pretty girl he needed to meet.
There you go.
So he came, and we hit it off from that moment. I was 15, he was 17. And we started dating that summer after they moved. And, life just kind of took it from there.
Yep.
3 kids later, married 3 kids later, and happy. We're happy.
Oh, yeah.
It's been rough, but I mean, he's a good supporter.
Yeah.
Even in my Sleep Sense business, he was the one who really pushed me to do it. So
That's cool. Yeah. So before we jump into Sleep Sense, you have a few things going on because you're heavily involved in Dunkin'. And what do you do there?
So I'm the HR director, and I oversee, I'm the HR director, and I'm director of directors. I'm lucky enough to get 2 titles.
Oh, yeah. What was it? She's the assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty impressive.
Pretty much, yeah.
Exactly.
And I got those titles because with HR, you can ask anyone in my family. They feel like I'm the level-headed one, the one who can kind of get into people's minds, their heads, understand where they're coming from, sit in their shoes. Even like Seth said in the beginning, he was joking, but it's the truth. I really can figure out what people are feeling, what they want to tell me that they're not telling me. So from early on, all of my family members kind of nudged me towards the direction of people. It started as training. I was the training director for a while. And then as our company grew, over 100 employees, it was pretty evident we needed HR. Now we have 265 employees and just keep growing. And HR is a pretty heavy field for our company. But as director of directors, I have created job descriptions for a director of operations, a training director, marketing director, office manager, payroll manager. I oversee all of their work. Created their jobs, did their jobs, oversee their jobs.
How do you maintain with all of those people? That's a lot of people to be over. How do you maintain that?
We've been blessed to have some really awesome team members that could be sisters. We're very happy as a family with the people that we have working for us. We make mention all the time to them that they feel like family. And a lot of them, a lot of our directors left companies where they felt like they were just a number. So to come in and feel like a family member, I think adds value to why they want to stay.
So you're intentional about creating that environment, a family environment.
Yeah, that culture. Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about culture. What do you mean by culture?
So with them specifically, I never want them to feel like they're just everyday run-of-the-mill doing the work that needs to be done without being noticed. We always want our people to feel valued, that they have a purpose and a mission for what they're doing. And, you know, it's fast food. Dunkin' is fast food. And a lot of people make the comment that you can't have a career out of fast food. And I beg to differ, because we have some really awesome directors that have worked. You know, I'm just thinking of my director of operations. She started with us as a part-time job as a crew member when I was the general manager. And she was just trying to make extra money for her daughter's college graduation. And from there, she grew to a general manager like I had. And her love and her compassion for our family and just everything about her. She's the most kind-hearted person that I know. She could be another mother to me, honestly. And when I look at somebody like that, I want to give them the world. You know, they've given us everything. So that's the kind of culture we're looking for.
She would be a great person to have on the show, because when I think of excellent leadership and excellent morals, I think of Shelby.
She's had a lot of experience.
Yeah. So
a lot of experience, a lot of life happened to her. But
yeah.
So when I think of culture, I think of like creating an environment for people. It's like a garden, you know, to thrive in, and giving them space to be creative as well. But I think that's important, because if you hire the right people, that's going to bring out the best in them. At the same time, you run the risk of people failing too, you know, because if they're not ambitious, they're gonna fail, or you're gonna have to continually correct that. But you find the right person, and it's like a gold mine.
Yeah.
So I like that you recognize that, and you bless those people that put forth that effort.
We do something similarly with our general managers. They all, you know, run each of our stores, and we give them enough freedom to run it the way that they want, to cultivate the culture that they want.
Right.
You know, hire the people that fit them best and run incentives that fit them best.
I remember Jim Collins reading From Good to Great, and he did a study on different successful organizations, and he put all those studies in a book. And this first one, or second one, was called Good to Great. How these companies went from good to great, almost like how, let's take Dunkin' that started in a corner somewhere, and now they're everywhere. It's like, how the heck did that happen? And so he went out and studied them, and he put all those findings together. And one of the things he talked about was preserving the core, but stimulating progress. My way of remembering that is always visual. It's like you have your core values very tightly, who Dunkin' is, the things you care about, you're never going to change, right? But then also you have an open hand, because the way you allow those things to happen are going to be individual and expressed individually in each store. And I think that's really important, because every store has its own little life and own little family that's different, little traditions that are started, and even little different areas. You may run a store even in Newcastle, in Neshannock, differently than on the east side. You know, so to have that the strength of, these are our core values, but allowing people to express them in their own way. It's just fascinating how all of these roles that are invisible work.
Yeah. And it's challenging when you grow. One of the struggles that we've had as a family is we've always had these stores nice and close to us. So you're in them all the time. You're visiting them all the time. The managers know you. You know, if you have to pick up a shift, you can. But as you grow, we've grown up to Erie, and that's really hard to keep those core values. You know, it really is in the team that you cultivate. And, you know, it's people like Shelby. It's people like my training director, my marketing manager, you know, my GMs that keep those core values, but also make their team their own. You know, without them, it would be very challenging to grow.
That's good stuff. So you have another endeavor called sleep consulting. Where did that come from? I know you mentioned you've got 3 little ones, right? So what gave you the idea to do this? Why is that important to you?
So when we had our first child, it took a toll on us. We laugh now, but it wasn't funny at the time. When we first brought Gregory home from the hospital, we took turns sleeping. We took shifts throughout the night. One of us would watch him and one of us would sleep. And there were so many times in those first couple weeks where pure frustration, anger, so many gross things came from us, things we didn't want to be. And Greg was a decent sleeper, but he didn't sleep through the night till he was about 9 or 10 months old, and he was very prop dependent on a bottle. So even though he was sleeping through the night, you had to keep producing a bottle for him. So when we got pregnant with Gabe, Greg was 15 months old, and having 2 under 2, we kind of knew all along it was going to be rough. And then when Gabe came, he had pulmonary aspirations, so he couldn't breastfeed. He couldn't have regular formula. It needed to be thickened or it would enter his lungs. This kid plumped up. He was huge. He was 24 pounds at 3 months. He was ginormous.
That's a big boy.
He was a big baby. And just like Greg, at 4 months, he was still waking up every 2 hours to eat. And what was crazy to us is like, this kid's huge. He eats a lot, and it's all thick oatmeal. There is no way he needs to eat every 2 hours. And we'd be frustrated because we'd go in to give him a bottle. He'd drink 1 ounce and pass out. And that's when, at this point, frustrated, have 2 under 2, both of us working full-time jobs. I went back to work at 4 weeks with all of my kids. So, when you're sleep deprived, you're not really doing anything right. So it's funny because
HR needs an HR director at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Seth and I always talk about when you're on your phone, all of a sudden things start popping up on Facebook. If you've Googled, saves it. And Sleep Sense popped up, Dana Obelman. And I started looking into her program, and I was intrigued. Get your baby sleeping through the night within a week. Really? Okay. So I purchased her plan, and I was shocked. Gabe was sleeping through the night, 12 hours consolidated by night 3.
Wow.
And I just couldn't believe that there was this magical thing out there, this sleep knowledge that if every mother knew, she'd never have to be sleep deprived. I couldn't believe that this wasn't readily available to moms, why they didn't know about it. So a couple months after having sleep trained Gabe, we looked into the sleep consulting training program because it was something I felt I could be passionate about. And, Seth just kept telling me, if this is something you're passionate about, I really think you should do it. And he was super supportive. He watched the kids while I went away to train. And it was a hefty investment, certification. And then, of course, because Dana's name is on it, Sleep Sense, you get almost like a mentor program afterwards, and you have to pass so many clients to be interviewed by her to know if you actually did the job right.
Wow.
Before she will actually certify you. So after 3 months of training with her, officially certified, and I've worked with over 100 babies at this point.
So what are your story with your kids is definitely not unique in that every parent out there listening is going like this. Me, right? And I remember those days, and it's not fun. There's no parent that enjoys that time, and they're all ripping their hair out. So you're feeling a significant need. What are parents doing wrong in that time with their kids?
Yeah, so it really is what the parent is doing wrong. I liked how you phrase that because, there's it's not really the child becoming prop dependent so much as it is, oh, this works. If we feed him to sleep, it works. If we rock him to sleep, it works. If we give him a pacifier, it works. So the parent introduces all of these external strategies that work. And the problem is that they only work for so long before they stop working. And
because the baby gets used to it, or once Or we don't know?
There's a few reasons. So the main thing I see a lot of 5 and 6 month olds, and the reason for that is because children go through a 4-month sleep regression.
Okay.
Everybody has heard about it. And the 4-month sleep regression is when a newborn's sleep changes from 50% deep, 50% REM, and it matures into adult sleep, which is 4 sleep cycles.
Okay.
Stages 1 through 4. When that happens, their sleep cycles change to 45 and 60 minutes. So what that basically means is if I have to rock my baby to sleep, they're going to cycle through 4 stages of sleep. And at the end of the 4th stage, they're going to go back into stage 1, which means they're briefly waking up. When they briefly wake up, they realize, Mom's not rocking me. There's no bottle. I don't know where my pacifier is. Insert crying to get Mom to come back.
You just dropped a ton of knowledge right there.
Yeah. So, and that's, I find a lot of people don't know how much science is behind sleep. It's extremely packed with so many things that I think people just don't realize. But to go back to your question, I think the main thing that people don't realize is when you're dealing with a newborn, you need all those good props, right? Babies need to suck on something, and they need to be fed every 2 hours, and they need that skin-to-skin time. Newborns need that stuff.
Okay.
But parents don't know how to start letting go of those things, and then the 4-month sleep regression hits. And now parents are at a total loss because they're waking up 45 minutes, an hour, every 2 hours. And they're like, this is I don't understand. My newborn was a great sleeper. I don't even know who this baby is. So most people find me in about 5 to 6 months when they realize this isn't going away.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So the parents are the problem. And here's one of the ways I knew that is unrelated but related in terms of the idea. When I got my first dog, he was my first real dog. You know, I grew up in a house with animals, but we got a lab, and so everyone said you got to bring him to puppy school. So yeah, we'll bring him to puppy school. And on the first day of puppy school, at the end of the first class, the teacher lined up all the dogs on the left and all the parents on the right, or the adults, the humans. And she goes, for the next 8 weeks, the problem is not going to be the dogs. The problem is going to be you all. My job is to train you all to train the dogs because they want to please you. But it's going to be you all that's going to be inconsistent, sending wrong messages. And if I can train you, I can train them. Right. And I'll never forget that lesson.
Yeah.
We're the problem, not the animals.
A lot of people think that as a sleep consultant, I'm coming to their home and training their baby. I'm not. I'm working with mom. I'm primarily mom. Sometimes dad calls me, but for the most part, I'm working with the parents and I'm teaching them what they need to do to support their child, to develop their child.
So are most people open when you go there? Or are they desperate? Like, thank God you're here. We'll do anything. Or is there resistance? Like, I know what I'm doing. My mom's mom used to do this.
Usually by the time they find me and they make the investment, they're all in. I've only ever had one person who didn't graduate. And that was basically because she didn't want to follow the plan.
Okay.
And I mean, you're paying for my support. You're paying for my program. So if you don't want to follow it, you're not going to get the results.
Right.
But yeah, no, I don't usually have people that, get into the sleep plan and everything. And they're like, no, I can't. I don't want to do this way.
That's good. Because the last thing you need is to battle people while you're there.
I know. Right? Now, on the outside, the people who don't hire me, I do battle quite a few people.
Yeah, I see. So you mentioned food throughout the night. Are babies supposed to eat throughout the night?
That's a good question. I find that there's often a misconception there. A lot of people think that a sleep consultant is going to tell them to pool night feeds. And that's not always the case. If you come to me with a 4-month-old, 6-month-old, and they're under 16 pounds, I'm probably going to tell you to keep the night feed.
Okay.
They might not need 7, but they probably need 1.
Don't talk about my family like that.
But of course, what's very important to me is that we follow what the pediatrician says. So I'm always telling mom, if you want to drop the night fee, we will, but please go ask pediatrician if they've met all of the weight requirements to do so.
Okay. Well, I like you said that you involved the pediatrician there too. So what the parents are doing is wise because they're surrounding themselves with wise, with people that are all there to help their child.
Yeah.
So you're part of the team when you come in.
Yeah. And pediatricians know more about your child in terms of health relation than I do. They're not sleep experts, though. They get a crash course and all of that stuff. They don't know really how to help your child sleep. They just know they need sleep.
Mm-hmm. So what's the worst thing a parent can do with the kids for sleep?
That's a very loaded question.
Or what are some bad things parents do?
So you're talking about props. What props can they introduce?
Sure.
So obviously past the newborn phase, we're talking infants. Pacifiers can be a huge prop. The AAP suggests them until 6 months. So if baby's older than 6 months, we usually pull those. And that's mainly because they can't reinsert them. Mm-hmm. Bottle feeding, breastfeeding can become an issue, which there's a common misconception there. People think that if you sleep train, you have to stop breastfeeding, and that's not the case. But if baby is falling asleep on the breast, now we have an issue.
Okay.
Rocking to sleep. Now, when you get into toddlers, all those props kind of go away because they don't work anymore.
Okay.
Like, I have worked with a couple three-year-olds who need water all night, which kind of sucks, right? In 3 years, you're giving your child a drink every 2 hours. But for the most part, the prop becomes the parent. I need mom to lay on my floor. I need to play with her hair. I need her to sing to me. Mm-hmm. I worked with a dad who had been sleeping on his child's floor for 3 years.
Again, don't talk about me like that. So how important let me ask this, how important is light and quiet? Is that important, or can a kid sleep through that? Or is it you want a dark room and you want lights off and no noise, or what's the situation?
So we'll go for the noise question first because that one's relatively easy. Quiet is fine. I always suggest white noise, and even for adults too. I work with adults, and I like it because when, like I said, we're going through those stages of sleep. When we hit stage 1, if there were noise, we would hear it and we would wake up. It'd be kind of like if I kept pulling your pillow all night.
Okay.
Every time I would pull your pillow, you'd get to stage 1, you'd realize it's gone. Now you stimulate a full wake up. The same thing happens with noise. So if you have dogs in the house, toddlers in the house, all of those things, white noise drowns all of that out. Going to the light question, it's a good question because light affects all humans, from newborn to adult. And the reason that is, and I'm going to get scientific again.
Okay.
But your eyes receive light and they send a message to your brain.
Did you learn this in Sleep Sense?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if she was like a scientist on the side, or like how much knowledge of science does your wife have?
Well, she has a lot. She has a lot.
I went through the adult certification too, and that's where I picked up on a lot of the science.
Okay.
And that was an extensive training as well. So basically your eyes receive light and they send a message to your brain to produce hormones, cortisol and melatonin. So when you're perceiving light, your brain is sending a signal to your body. It's time to make that cortisol. We need to stay awake. It's daytime.
Okay.
And this reverts back to, we're talking 1800s, early 1900s, no light bulbs. This is how people would function. The sun would come up, they were up, and when the sun went down, they went to bed. And so when it's dark and we start turning off the lights, for adults, I always suggest lighting candles at nighttime or purchasing blue blocking bulbs, because it allows our body to start producing melatonin, which allows us to fall asleep easier. We don't have adrenaline and cortisol, fighting against us to keep us awake. To give you some more science, a light bulb is about 100 lux. A candle is about 10 lux. Anything over 100 lux starts affecting your melatonin production. So if you have one light bulb on, it's going to affect how easily you fall asleep.
What about computer screens and all that stuff? Does that...
All over 100. So for adults, the very first thing I'm eliminating in their bedtime routine is electronics. Like, we have a power down hour, and you're going to plug in all your electronics to charge, and then you're going to start your bedtime routine without electronics. They're the number one reason why it takes adults so long to fall asleep.
And so before the electronics, it was TVs in people's bedrooms.
Yes.
Because I've heard, I don't have any TVs in our bedrooms. And because I've heard that should be your sanctuary, right? So you're going there to sleep, right?
Yep.
So is that part of that same idea? Is your bedroom should be a place where it's comfortable? You can watch TV. Go to the room where the TV is.
Yeah.
Same.
So it's the same from children all the way to adults. When I'm working with an adult, sleep sanctuary is what I call it. And the bed is for nothing but sleep and sex. And that's it. Nothing else happens in there. We don't watch TV. We don't do work, schoolwork. We don't play on our phone. We don't do any of that in bed. Because your brain is smart enough to start registering when it's time for sleep. And I'll put it in terms of a baby because it's a little easier to understand. We do a sleep routine with babies. We take them into their nursery. We dim the lights. We start preparing them for bed. We change their diaper. We lotion them up. We put them in PJs. We put them in a swaddle or a sleep sack. Into the crib they go. We turn on the white noise. We leave. That's a bedtime routine. And what a lot of parents start recognizing when I'm working with them is baby starts to get upset when they're like halfway through the bedtime routine.
Okay.
And I'm like, cool, that means it's working. They realize sleep is coming. Right? So when we have like an 8 or 9 month old that's starting to understand dependence and mom's going to take me into the room and that means playtime's over, that's upsetting to them. But also people tend to pick up on baby starts yawning more.
Yes.
They start rubbing their eyes.
Right.
They start, nuzzling into your shirt. They're tired. It's working. So the same thing goes for adults.
You're setting the stage for what you want to happen.
Yeah, you're telling your brain what's next.
You're shutting the lights down. You're putting candles on. I also read where you should also lower music progressively as well, or whatever you're listening to, because you're it'll help you get to that place.
Yeah, and it's all about the melatonin production. It's all about your natural melatonin kicking in and doing its job.
Let me ask you this question. Are there people that have more melatonin than others? Because you just meet some people that say, quote, I don't need a lot of sleep. And then you meet other people that say, if I don't have 8 hours of sleep, I'm a zombie the next day or whatever. Is that true?
So a lot of things play into that. Some people only need 7 hours of sleep. Some people need 9. It also depends on your age. So think about that a 60-year-old person wouldn't be doing as much with their body in the daytime as a 20-year-old person would be. So 20-year-old's going to need more sleep than a 60-year-old does. When I work with elderly people, they usually only need 6 or 7 hours of sleep. And that's mainly because they're not active in the day. Now, hormones they play a huge part on sleep. So we talk about melatonin and cortisol, but a bunch of other things can affect your sleep as well. So I work with a lot of moms, and a lot of moms will hire me because their postpartum hormones are now affecting their sleep. And that just really depends on what their vitamin D looks like and what their adrenal glands are producing, and all that crazy stuff that you wouldn't really think about affecting sleep, but they do. What you eat affects how you sleep. How you exercise affects how you sleep. How much sunlight you get affects how you sleep.
Is this a myth that you should not eat late at night or when you're going to bed? Or is that a wives' tale, or is that true?
So think about your digestive system. It does a lot of work. If your digestive system is working, do you think you'll be sleeping well?
I don't know, because my digestive system's always working at night, so I don't know. It's always done that.
You shouldn't eat a couple hours before bed.
So that's a true don't eat right before you go to bed.
Yeah,
especially spicy stuff. You'll have weird dreams.
Yeah.
She also just recently learned about the effects of drinking alcohol right before bed too.
Yeah.
People, like a nightcap.
Yeah, and that's really sciencey. I won't get into the science behind that because I'm not sure everyone would understand. But basically, people think alcohol makes you tired, and it does. It basically speeds up the production of sleep. It basically fires everything off at once, making you really tired. But what it does do is it kind of backfires on you, because 4 hours after you fall asleep, you usually wake up and can't go back to sleep. And the reason for that is because you have fired off all of what you need to sleep by drinking that alcohol. And usually people will see about 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the night that they can't. They're wide awake. So yeah, things that we consume.
It's just crazy how all the things that.
Let me ask you this question.
Food intolerances, they can keep you awake.
I knew a guy that referred to something, I don't know if it's scientific or the name he gave it. He called it monkey brain. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Let me describe it. He said when he goes to lay down at night, his brain swings from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's hours of this. That he called it monkey brain. Now we see the reason why, but what's that?
So when I work with adults, and it's typically women, stress plays a huge part on their insomnia. And most of the time it's the falling asleep portion. It's taking them up to an hour or two to fall asleep. And it's because of that. Their thoughts are racing. They can't stop thinking one thing after another. Did I do this? Did I forget to do that? What do I have to do tomorrow? And that is stress. So a lot of what we're doing in adult plans is sleep mantras, positive sleep associations. So we're kind of going to talk ourselves up for sleep. And again, that's all part of the brain, right? We need to tell the brain that we're ready for sleep. We're cool, we're calm, we're collected, we can do this. If somebody, and when I get ready to work with someone, I send out a questionnaire and I kind of ask them, how much do you negatively talk about sleep? And most of the time, the people who aren't good sleepers talk negatively about their sleep. I'm tired because I didn't get enough sleep last night. Or I'm not a very good sleeper. Or, oh my gosh, today is awful because I only got 2 hours of sleep. Those sort of people who talk negatively about it will continue to sleep bad because they've told themselves they can't sleep. They're not a good sleeper. They don't know how to do it. And their body then succumbs to, that lie that they told themselves.
Wow. That's fascinating. Listen, how do people get a hold of you? I don't know whether to say parents or humans, because I feel like this is broader than just, you have your baby element, but you have anyone out there listening. Your sleep, we spend so much time sleeping. So if you're out there and you feel like this is something you need to do, how do we contact you?
So I do have a website. It's taylorwaltersleep.com. And I have a bunch of free resources, whether you follow me on Instagram or Facebook. And I have sleep guides, a bunch of free ones, a bunch of ones that are at a minimal cost, packed with all of this knowledge I'm giving you. I have a weekly blog, again, a free resource. But yeah, there's a lot to learn about sleep.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that people just don't know.
Listen, if you struggle with sleep, contact Taylor. If you are, if you're in the middle of having little ones and they're having trouble sleeping and it's a nightmare for you, then contact her. Or I even think if you don't have kids and are thinking of having kids, why go through that nightmare? Contact her beforehand, because if you can prevent something like that and have the tools available to you, I think you should. And I think this is so big because it takes up so much of your life with the little ones, and it changes your experience with them when they're little, but also it bleeds into everything else. Like you're saying, when you're not sleeping, it affects your relationship with everyone, your spouse, your kids, your next day at work. So I think that's really cool what you're doing. I'm impressed. I didn't know much about it. We just give NyQuil out. We're like, go to bed, kid. I'm kidding, right? But
but melatonin, people do give kids melatonin.
That's really cool. And so before let's get off that subject. We have a little bit of time left to learn more about you. What do you like to do for fun? How do you unwind?
I sleep.
You experiment on yourself, right, to see if it works.
Actually, when I did the adult course, she was like, you guys need to test this on yourself. And I enjoyed that because I do love sleep. But I don't know. I really do enjoy sleep. That wasn't a joke.
She does. Yeah, she does. I would say, obviously spending time with your kids.
Yeah.
You enjoy that. You do enjoy binge watching TV.
Yeah. DIY projects, music, singing.
Singing. Yeah, she's an excellent singer.
So you mentioned earlier being opposite of Seth. Tell us about the music how different you are. What are you listening to?
So I like vocalists, and I like pop music. I like anything you're gonna find on the radio on like 95.9.
Oh, really?
That kind of stuff.
So you're jamming a Justin Bieber and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I like Jason Mraz, those types of vocalists. He is the complete opposite.
Yeah, I know.
He'll listen to that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't love it.
Doesn't
and I can't stand his music.
You don't
either.
like the heavy metal?
We don't know. No. He's like, you have to love Metallica. It's like the greatest band ever. I don't know how. No, I don't have to like it. And there are probably millions of people who do not like it, even if there are millions of people who do.
Hey, that's okay. That's all right.
One day, she'll.
No,
is there any Metallica song that you do like? Like one song where like, wow, they nailed it.
No, I've played her like very melodic, like Nothing Else Matters.
Yeah.
Like who doesn't like that song? And she's like Simon Cowell the entire time. She's like, his voice is so nasally. He's not doing the proper technique.
Okay.
He's and I'm like, so the whole time I'm just like sinking lower and lower.
I had years of vocal coaching. Like I had years where I took lessons weekly, and using your diaphragm and all of that. I just can't.
Do you know there's I'm sure you know on YouTube there's reviewers and there's vocalists that listen to bands like that.
Yeah.
So you probably would like to see how
I've tried showing her.
I have watched a few he's shown me and these people will be like, wow, that's really impressive. I can't believe they're doing that. Like, listen how smooth this is. Yeah, I don't have the same feeling.
No. Well, here's a question I like to end with, and it's something I like to ask everyone. So if you were to run into your 8-year-old self, let's say, by chance, knowing what you know now in life, what advice would you give you? What would you tell yourself?
So I think the thing I'd go back and tell myself is that life is going to get hard, but God will pull you through. And, Seth and I we've talked about this a lot, but we've had a rough entrance into marriage and parenthood. And something that we wish our parents would have told us is just how hard, how depressing, how devastating, how challenging life can be. And I think that parents are just trying to protect their children by not telling them those things. But could have made a difference to know that, Dad snapped at me because he's stressed out at work, or, Mom has a headache because she's trying to figure out finances. And, if I could, I'd go back and say, you're going to have some really rough years, and each year might get worse than the last. We joke about it, but it's the truth. But God will pull us through. We've had many a conversation where we talk about, God provides for the birds. They don't have to worry about being fed, where they're going to live, where they're going to sleep. He provides, and he'll provide for us too.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much. I think that's a very fitting way to end the show. So thank you so much for being here. And I know that all the listeners, I know you've been blessed. And so, again, check out Taylor Walters, check out the sleep consulting business. And of course, if you live in the area, go get yourself a nice cup of Dunkin' Donuts. If you're ever in the area of Hermitage, PA, I take my coffee black, hot and black. That's what I like. Right, Seth?
Yeah.
So, this is Anthony Clauditis, pastor here at Faith, signing off. I hope you have a blessed week. If you have not done so and you've been blessed by this program, hit that subscribe button. We would appreciate it. We'll see you next week.